Chronic illness is a friendship audit. Here's how my husband and I manage the collateral damage of feeling a lot of relationships shift and change over time. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm a therapist who was recently diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. I am that person that in a lot of my relationships, I was that person who was the one who would organize the food trains, the one who would organize, gift baskets and things, and making sure to be supportive of other folks. And because I know that that's important and that's needed in the world. And I got to a place where you can't anymore. You just can't. Um, that some of those folks who I knew did not necessarily reciprocate that in the same way. It's not necessarily that I was expecting them to all of a sudden start doing the thing, but it's when you take a look at a wide range of relationships and you start to see, like, okay, well, who is actually here when I'm down? Talk to clients about that a lot. And the way that that tends to come up is, it's important to have friendships that are there for you when when things are good, because sometimes people don't know how to be with you when things are great. And then to also have those friends that they can be with you when you're down. You need to have friends that are in the hills and the valleys of your life. And for myself, I felt and still feel like I have those friends that are in the hills and the valleys of my life. But after I made a lot of changes in my life, step back from my group practice, and my body just kind of just needed to crash. I thought it was just grieving the practice, did not realize that a lot of those physical symptoms and the exhaustion that I was feeling, I actually had an autoimmune disorder all of this time, and was just kind of having enough quiet and space to be able to sit with my body and find out, like, okay, what's actually going on with you? What are you actually trying to tell me? And in the process of me trying to do all of that, you look around for those friends who you believe are there for you, who would support you. And sometimes it's crickets. That is not fun. That's not fun. For me, fortunately, I have a wide range of friends. So that I have some friends who were able to still be there. They were able to show up, but some of them didn't have the capacity in the way that I know that they normally could. So some of my friends who are better at being there with me when I'm well and things are good and I'm fun, when I really crash, they had a hard time being in that space with me. And so, they would check on me. They would, say things like, "How are you?" Um, it wasn't this deep, excuse me, it wasn't this deep emotional connection that I needed at different points in time. However, the checking in that they did do was good enough for me and for my nervous system, because I know these people, their capacity, that they have difficulty sitting in their own emotions when they're struggling. And so, of course, they would have difficulty sitting with my emotions when I'm struggling. I had some other friends who are the friends they love to hear when you're not doing well, because that validates their experience. And so, when they hear that you're not doing well, they're able to kind of validate that experience, be like, "Oh my goodness, I can see the humanness in you, see the humanness, sorry, in your experience." But then sometimes they don't have the bandwidth to be able to actually do the thing to be supportive of you. And so I've sat with that in my nervous system, which has not always felt the best. And so when I sit down and I talk with my husband, who I love, I care for, who is a hills and valley person, 100% hills and valley person, has the capacity, 100%. When I talk with him, it's easy for him to start to get really angry and for him to be like, "Okay, we're done with this friend. We're done with that friend. We're done. You don't need this person in your life. I never liked this person anyways. I felt like they took too much from you." Like, he's ready to start writing folks off. And I'm like, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. And so sometimes it can almost cause a little bit of a tension in our relationship because he's ready to write folks off because that's one of the ways that he copes with difficulties in friendships, particularly with when he's trying to be protective of me. Um, but that's not the way. So when I'm stepping in the way of that, it's almost like I'm stepping in the way of protecting him, not protecting him, protect. I'm stepping in the way. Sorry, word salad. I'm stepping in his way of protecting me. And so sometimes that can cause some tension between the two of us. And so what I've noticed that I've needed to do is I've needed to really, really slow myself down in those moments and take an honest look, number one, at the friendship and see like, okay, how balanced was this friendship? Is this one that I felt like I was providing more than 70% of the care? And why am I throwing 70% out there? In a lot of the sex therapy research, one of the numbers that we look at in terms of initiating in a sexual relationship, which probably sounds like a weird segue, I promise it's not. Uh, in sexual encounters, if one partner is initiating more than 70% of the time and initiating intimacy, then that partner can tend to feel burned out, can tend to feel resentful, and not want to initiate. And so when I'm working with a couple, I'm like, okay, well, the person who's only initiating, less than 30%, I'm like, you need to find some sort of ways of initiating to help this feel a little bit more balanced. It's not that you have to be the number one initiator, but to have some balance. I'll say something similar for friendships. So when I'm talking about friendships, sometimes there's a person who does more work in the friendship, who does more care and concern. Sometimes it's a little bit more 50-50, right? But sometimes it's more like 60-40, or sometimes it's a 70-30. And so the key is to not be like a 90-10. If you are over functioning in your friendship and you're providing the love and the care and the support and doing all the things, and you're doing that 90% of the time, and the other person's maybe doing 10%, you're going to eventually burn out of that relationship. That's not going to be sustainable. And so, first thing, first and foremost, I had to slow myself down and do a true relationship audit to see like how much am I actually there for these people and how much before I got sick and how much are they there for me before I got sick. And starting to take a look at like not only that, but then the nuances of it. Are they a person that they can handle and their nervous system just can handle happy emotions better? Some folks, their nervous system can just do that. Others, they have a hard time staying in the happy place. Others can operate more in the like, things are sad, things are hard, write that person off, don't trust that person. So sometimes people operate more in that realm. And so they feel better and they're able to show up a little bit more if, you're not feeling very well. So I needed to just take an honest look because if somebody on the outside who loves and cares about you is saying that they see something, it's important to slow down and just to take an honest look at it. And so that's what I did first and foremost was like, okay, how balanced was this relationship to begin with before I got sick? Now, how balanced is it when I'm well? How balanced is it when I'm not doing very well? And it's okay if there's fluctuation. So I needed to do that. After I did that um, for myself, and I do that separately, I was also able to just hear my husband out, just to listen to him. And when I was hearing him talk, again, it's not very kind towards my friends and some of my friends. Most of my friends he's cool with, but a handful of them, he's like, I don't even know why you deal with that person. I never liked that person. So sounds so bad, but he wants to protect me. And that is a way that he shows up in our relationship is he does move into this space of protecting me. Now, for me as a Black woman, I was raised to be able to make sure you're taking care of yourself, which I can take care of myself. However, I also allow myself a place where I can be taken care of in my marriage. And so I try to make sure to also have that in my friendships, where I allow people to come in and to do some things for me that are taking care of me, because that's healthy for both parties. So as I was listening, one of the things that I try to do, this is something I learned in my grief work, is I try to imagine myself as a heart with ears. And so when I'm listening to everything that he's saying, a lot of it's harsh, a lot of it coming in, like sometimes I want to interject or say something, but I just kind of remind myself just to take a few breaths, just to breathe, and to listen with my heart to what he's trying to communicate to me. And the thing that I could hear my husband saying loud and clear is, I think some of these people are making you sick. He's not wrong. Those people who are supportive in your life, they have wisdom. Sometimes we need to be able to slow down and we need to be able to accept it, even if it doesn't feel the most comfortable. He wasn't wrong. Some of those people in my life did cost me a lot of energy. And so when they weren't there, they weren't showing up for me when I was down. I was like, you know what? It's not a fun reality to see, but it's an important reality to sit with. Not necessarily that I'm going to write these folks off. Um, you make whatever decision works for you if you're sitting in that position. But for me, it just kind of let me know, okay, I might need to back up a little bit on how I show up for some of these folks. I need to probably, one of the things I talk to my clients about is almost imagining your social energy as like eggs, and start paying attention to where you're investing your eggs. So am I investing, half a dozen eggs in a relationship that doesn't pour into me, that is only me pouring into them? That's not going to be the safest investment. The best investment is to diversify, but to diversify with folks that aren't going to smash your eggs. Or, I mean, everybody smashes an egg sometime or another. We all make mistakes in a relationship. That happens. That's part of being in a relationship as a human being. Okay. So, but I'm not going to trust six eggs to somebody that I know that is going to smash very easily all of those eggs. I'm going to trust with that person less eggs. So maybe I give that person one egg. And so they smash it, it's fine. If they break it or they trip or they fall or whatever they do, no shade on that person. That's fine. I still have 11 eggs left. And so I took some time to take a look at my relationships, find those relationships that I was pouring in probably too many eggs when I was healthy, that I didn't need to do that anymore after finding out that I had an autoimmune disorder. I just didn't need to do it, because sometimes when you have autoimmune disorder, you have less eggs. You just have less. So it's like, okay, I want to be a little bit more careful about how I um, dish out my energy, how I care for folks. And I want to make sure that I'm doing more investing with those folks that I know the relationship is a little bit more balanced. Like I said, at least a 70-30. That's the kind of relationships I need for my nervous system. So one of the things I like to talk about also, just in terms of friendships, when you take a look at your friendships, a good friendship audit advice piece is, there's nobody going to be there for you 100% of the time. I'm sorry. We're all human. And when I take a good look at myself, I can't be there for somebody 100% of the time. I can't. I'm going to forget. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to have a bad day. I'm going to have the wrong response. Like, I'm not going to be able to show up 100% perfect for somebody every single time. I'm just not going to be able to do it. So I don't put my friends, and I definitely don't put my husband in that category where I'm expecting him or anybody else to be a 100%er for me. Most of my closest friends, I would have said pre-pandemic, were 90%ers. And when I say 90%ers, I mean 90% of the time they would show up for me. 90% of the time they would help me. They would celebrate with me when things are good. When I'm not doing good, they're there with me in the sadness and the hard parts of life as well. They were they're there 90% of the time. Unless they have a bad day, they forget, they say the thing that doesn't land the best in my nervous system. That's okay. That's okay. Still a great friend, still a close friend. After the pandemic and that whole uh, trauma that we just sustained as an entire collective human experience, those 90 percenters shifted from me to like 70 percenters. They could only show up about 70% of the time. And I had about 5 90 percenters before the pandemic. After the pandemic, I had like 3 70 percenters. So I lost some friendships um, after the pandemic. I just did. One of the things that I'm noticing as the world is moving into this place and as Americas, we're in this more divisive place where people are either hot or cold with one another. There's like not much room for in between. They're very politically one way or very politically the other way, and there's no conversation. There's no room for an in between. One of the things that I'm noticing, not just in my own life, but I'm also noticing as I talk with others, is that people are doing like another friendship audit. And so maybe it's not that there's a chronic illness that you're doing a friendship audit with. Maybe what's going on is similar to COVID. You're taking a look back at your relationships. Where is this? Is this still a place that feels good for both parties? If it doesn't, maybe we need to reevaluate some things. That's okay to do that as we're taking a look at some of the things that are going on in our country and in our world, regardless of where you land politically, there's a lot of folks that are upset. And if you have a hard time looking for folks upset, just get in your car and start driving. And I'm like, why are so many people driving in both lanes? Like they have to have both. Why are people in my lane while I'm in it? Like, so it's been a place where I'm just noticing this angst, this tension that I'm seeing everywhere. And so whether or not you have a chronic illness, whether or not you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, like I recently did, um, the climate that we're in currently may be a place where you need to do a friendship audit. And so when I say friendship audit, not from the stance of like cut them off, 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 like my poor sweet husband's first kind of like impulse kind of choice of our brains, just like protective mode. But maybe to notice the protective mode, take a couple breaths, slow down, do an actual evaluation. Take a look at them. Are they 90 percenters? Are they 70 percenters? Are they 50 percenters? Are they less than 30? If they're less than 30, and that's a consistent thing, you may want to consider not necessarily cutting the person off, but having a little bit more emotional distance in the relationship. And so, what am I mean by a little bit more emotional distance? So, some of my relationships that I've developed a little bit more emotional distance, and this usually happens over time, is maybe this was a person that I would text 2 to 3 times a week, which is a lot. If I'm texting somebody 2 to 3 times a week, that's a lot for me. Okay. I realize folks are on social media and doing all the things, and personally, I don't do that for myself. But if somebody I'm texting maybe 2 to 3 times a week, we text back and forth. If I'm noticing that that's not being reciprocated or it doesn't feel good for either person anymore, then I'm going to start to scale back a little bit. And so maybe it's once a week, and maybe it's something about how I'm doing or have you. And if I notice that egg keeps getting dropped, then maybe that might feel like 3 eggs for me getting dropped. Then maybe I'm going to scale back. So maybe if I'm still doing once a week, I'm just sending like a funny picture or something cute or supportive for that person. And if that keeps getting dropped, then I'm going to back it out to maybe every other week, one message that's kind of light, airy, fluffy, fun. If that keeps getting dropped, then I'm probably going to do once a month. And if somebody is meeting my once a month in terms of social engagement and that person is a friend, I usually need to schedule it in my calendar. Why do I do that? I do that if I'm intentional about the relationship. If that person is shifting in my mind to more of an associate, I don't need to do that with an associate. I can back that up even further in my mind. It's like maybe every 3 months, or maybe just to text that person Happy New Year's. Um, but those are different degrees that I go through. Excuse me. Those are different degrees that I go through in terms of relationship connections and different ways of connecting and how much we're connecting. So you can shift that up in terms of method, whether it's a phone call, a text, some sort of personal messaging on the social media platforms, meeting in person. You can adjust those things based upon running some tests, running some data, seeing what works for that relationship. If it's been more than a year or so, you haven't heard from the person, you don't want to keep the relationship. Maybe you're not sending that Happy New Year's text every year, just to kind of keep that door open and keep that person as an associate in your life. Maybe that's when you're kind of just done with that person. So usually I hope that, along the way as some things are shifting, you'd have a conversation with that person to be able to make that more explicit about what's going on from your end so that you have an opportunity to find out what's going on with that other person. Because here's the thing, there's a lot of relationships that I have that people think that they know what I'm thinking because I'm a therapist and I'm pretty upfront with my emotional experience. Um, I've had a lot of people try to read my face, and I'm very quick to say, hey, look, my face does not follow social norms. Sorry, it just doesn't all the time. So if you ever have a question about the face that I'm making, and this is just a meta conversation I have with folks in my life, you ever have a conversation or you ever have a question about a face that I'm making, please feel free to ask me. I am one of those people that if you ask me, I will tell you. No, I've been very explicit about that in relationships, and I've had folks ask, and then I've had folks not ask. And so that has been a moment where I've had to take a friendship audit of like, I made a face because I was feeling a thing, and somebody made an assumption about what I was thinking based off of how my face looked. I'm like, wow, they don't have a conversation about it. They know what I was thinking. They know. I'm like, okay, okay. So again, that's good data. It's a good time to stop, slow down, take a relationship audit, see what those people that are willing to have those meta conversations with you. And a meta conversation is just a conversation about your communication. If folks are willing to have those conversations with you, then maybe that's a relationship you keep. If they're not willing to have those relationships with you, you just say, hey, look, I'm not trying to come across from a place of being critical. Like, I'm just coming across from a place of just trying to understand or from a place of curiosity. If you can have that kind of a stance with somebody, it's not always about what they're doing. Sometimes it's about what we're doing. We can have a stance of some curiosity and say, hey, look, I just want to understand. I don't know what's going on. I want to respect your opinion, your choices if you don't want to talk to me, or if it feels too overwhelming because I don't feel well, and maybe that doesn't feel the best for you to talk about. Um, we can have some grace for each other, but that's kind of how I handle it, and how I am handling it. So in my marriage, I'm very explicit with my husband about where I'm at, what I'm doing. So after he shared with me about, he didn't say, I'm just trying to protect you. That's not the words he used. After my heart was able to hear that, I was able to respond to him very directly and say, thank you. Thank you for caring about me. Thank you for being here for me. And I know this may not feel the most comfortable for you, but I really want to take some time to slow down and take a look at those relationships because I want to be able to see if some of these things actually do work for me, or maybe I do need to adjust and change some things in that relationship. So please listen to the people who love and care about you. Those folks tend to have good data. They tend to know you well. They might see something that you don't because they have a different perspective than you do. And my husband's perspective, I am really grateful for it because he has seen things that I've not always wanted to see because I loved and cared about the person. So, my name is Virginia. I am a licensed mental health therapist. I hope a lot of this was really helpful for you, or maybe it wasn't like the most helpful or new information. Maybe it was something that was just confirming for you. if it is something that was confirming for you or helpful in any way, I do ask that you would consider subscribing to my channel. And I hope to see you next time. And I hope that you would please take care of yourself and to take care of those that are in your life. See you.